you are your own money guru. I don't want to be your money guru. I'll certainly give you guidance and insights, but you are the one that cares most about your money. I don't care who you are, you know? So take charge of your own financial future. Don't hand it off. Don't outsource it to somebody else, whether it's a radio host or a podcast host or a book you read or your uncle or your financial advisor. Only you, at the ultimate end of the day, are responsible for your own cash and cash flow and so forth. So certainly listen to people who've been there before, who can show you where the bear traps are. And that's just one of them. I mean, there's so many. There's familiarity bias, where you do the thing that everyone else at the barbecue is doing. Oh, the latest crypto craze or whatever else. Do what you want your money doing for you. Research what tools and resources are out there that can implicate or introduce you to strategies that do what you want your money doing for you, and then go find tools that do it. I kind of look at it backwards because most of us are just sort of handed the 401k or even real estate. And we're said, hey, you should just do this thing. Just go get that crypto or go get that Roth IRA or open up that credit card or go get that line of credit. Well, what is it you want your money doing for you? Would be my next question. Is this tool functioning in alignment with your desires? Because, a savings account is going to act different than a hedge fund. Where you put your money makes it act different. So is your belief system aligned with your actions? If not, it causes stress, which goes back to the point about a peaceful mind. How did you say that?
A peaceful mind, a healthy body or a fit body, and a house full of love.
Yeah. If you don't have, I would love a six-pack, but I also love the taste of ice cream. And so my actions and my beliefs are sometimes in conflict with each other. But I think the same is true with our money. We tend to just sort of collect a bunch of accounts, for lack of a better word, brokerage accounts, rental properties. We just start throwing them in our backpack and we just carry them on through life. And then 10, 15, 20 years into the journey, we're like, man, this is a heavy backpack. What am I doing with 17 credit cards and 4 different real estate properties and all parts of the country that have nothing to do with each other and can't really align those properties well, like you talk about doing. So there's a lot of, I think, misalignment with our beliefs and our accounts, our financial accounts, or our financial reality. So those are just a few. I mean, we could go further down that road if you want, Kirby, but gives folks a taste.
Yeah, no, but that's, I think it's really smart from it to look at it from a psychological standpoint, because I think we can sabotage ourselves. Are there any, though, like specific asset classes that you feel like this is where I see the most growth or the most success? Is it like owning a business? Is it real estate? Is it?
Oh, okay. Yeah. On the positive side of things, I got stuck in the bear traps over there, but yeah, on the positive side of things, this is going to be general. It's not investment advice on a podcast, of course, but honestly, those short-term rentals, man, those are doing amazing. And I see the actual balance sheets and cash flow statements and profit and loss on these unbelievable NOI on short-term rentals, and particularly the strategy you showed me, which is, I call it the work-a-day short-term rentals. You probably have a better phrase for it. How would you define this? Your asset class?
We refer to them as utilitarian short-term rentals.
I like that even better.
Similar.
Yeah. So given that, you're not trying to deck it out with the vacation rental from the Hamptons or whatever. You're just doing utilitarian short-term rentals. That to me makes so much sense in terms of cash flow, expense layout, marketing, consistency. I see it too. When people who have worked with you come to me and do a financial analysis and I see the balance sheets, it's impressive to me. So that's a good one. A couple other ones for fun. If you like cash flow, strangely enough, certain forms of annuities are unbelievably efficient at creating income. I mean, that's what they've been around doing for 2,000 years, annuities. Okay, so real estate and annuities, they've both been around several thousand years, I'd say. So that's a proven track record for success. And what's interesting is, and folks who don't know about Bank on Yourself, maybe go back and listen to the last episode that Kirby and I did together on this show, or check out my podcast, Not Your Average Financial Podcast, shameless plug. So bank on yourself type whole life policies are a liquid pile of money that grow on a guaranteed basis every year. So they grow every year, but you have access to the money where you can use it for any purpose, including buying real estate. So this is where things get really interesting and where I think a lot of cohesion happens between our two communities. I could borrow against my life insurance policy and go invest in a utilitarian short-term rental. So now I've got this interesting play where now I've got a loan against my life insurance that's continuing to grow for me on a guaranteed basis, even on the capital I borrowed. So if I've got $200,000 of cash value and I borrow out $150,000 to purchase a rental or a series of rentals if I'm doing down payments or whatever, my policy is still earning for me on the full $200,000, even on the 150 grand I used as collateral for that loan. Meanwhile, I've also got the short-term rental I just acquired, giving me appreciation in the marketplace. If I'm flipping it or improving the scenario, I've got a forced appreciation there. I've got the cash flow. I've got the tax deductions and depreciation there too. It's just a nitroglycerin kind of partnership, in my opinion. They're just better together. They blow up in a very good way. So that would be an interesting play during your working years, is to create all these assets, like using your model of utilitarian short-term rentals. I've got an extra credit here for this, but let me hush for a minute. Any feedback on that idea of using bank on yourself designed whole life insurance right alongside the utilitarian short-term rentals?
I love that idea. I think that a lot of people hear that, and if they're not familiar with it, they hear bank on yourself, and then they hear whole life policies, and they're like confused. Like, is this a bank account or is this insurance or what? So I've heard it talked about a lot of times, and there's a lot of details I still get fuzzy on. So could you break it down for people who are interested in what you just talked about, but do it in a way that like a third grader could understand, like me,
Yeah.
who has a mindset of a third grader, and do it in very layman's terms of how this actually works, what this vehicle actually is.
At a very simple level, it's a contract. If you like real estate, you only like real estate because there's a contract backing it. If you don't have a contract to that property, all you have is squatter's rights. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So insurance is another contract. That's all it is. So I like contractual wealth. I don't like paper wealth, because paper wealth is just paper profits, 401k, up and down, up and down. Stocks, same thing. But a contract says I have a unilateral right to X dollars on this date. Today I'm worth X. Tomorrow I'm worth X plus Y, and so on and so on. So much like a real estate contract, a whole life insurance policy is a contract. And it says the insurance company is obligated to do certain things. Okay, just like your renter is obligated to pay you rent, for example. Well, the insurance company is obligated to do a few things. Number one, pay my family if I croak. That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Two, if I don't croak, and that's my plan, by the way, they'll give me more equity every single year in my contract. So sort of like your mortgage, when you have a 30-year mortgage, you're paying that mortgage down. They don't know what your house is going to be worth, but they can guarantee the mortgage will be paid off in 30 years. So I have a contract, a whole life contract that says on year one, your cash value is X. And then it's a guaranteed increase of your cash in year 2, 3, 4. Typically, we design the policies to have as much equity as possible right up front. So you're asking like a third grader. Let me see what I can do here. Because I just talked to a real estate investor. Let me talk to a third grader. Your money has to live somewhere. What if you could put the money somewhere where it would grow every year? You always had access to it. It never got taxed again. And if you pass away too soon, your family gets everything you'd hope to build for them if you had lived to be 121 years old. Now, if that strategy was out there and it was over 200 years old, would you feel comfortable repositioning some of your money that's currently at somebody else's bank into your own bank?
Got it. Okay. So you can almost picture it as a bank account that you're putting you're investing money into, and then you can use it for whatever purpose you want.
Yep.
And borrow against your own bank account. So that's where the bank on yourself idea comes from. And I guess what's the big advantage to doing it this way instead of putting in a bank account?
Well, when you put money into a bank account, that's fine. But whose bank is it? It's somebody else's bank, right? It's Jamie Dimon's bank, or it's Bank of America's bank, or whatever. That's okay. But how much interest are they willing to pay you? Probably not a lot. Two, don't they tax you on the interest that they do pay you? They do. Yeah, they charge you, they tax you interest, or they tax you on the interest that you earned in your savings account. But the most problematic piece to saving at somebody else's bank is they are using your money on your behalf. And then you break compound growth every time you try to touch your own money. So let's say I go to the Bank of Kirby and I drop 10 grand in there as a deposit. If Kirby's a smart banker, what's he doing with my money? Is he just going to put it in the vault? No, he's going to loan that money out, right? If Kirby's a smart banker, how much interest is he going to pay me? He's going to pay me about 1%, 5% interest, right? What's he going to loan that money for? Probably 15%, 30% if he's a good, shrewd banker. How much of Kirby's money was in that deal?
Zero.
Zero. What was his rate of return? Infinite is the answer.
Yeah.
So that's a great deal if you can swing it. Now you'd have to have several million, tens of millions of dollars and a bank charter to open up the smallest little local bank branch. However, if you can borrow against your life insurance policy, you can do that same strategy for modest amounts of money. When I withdraw money out of Kirby's bank, how much interest am I now earning? Again, zero, right? I broke the interest. Whenever I withdraw that money, it breaks the compounding. But when I borrow against my life insurance policy, my money is still there. I'm using it kind of like a line of credit, like a home equity line of credit on your house. I borrow against my policy and it continues to earn interest and grow as if I had not touched the money, kind of like your house doesn't stop appreciating in the neighborhood just because you opened a HELOC. So similarly, though, I can repay the loan to my policy on my own terms. So unlike a HELOC, there's no monthly required payment. And unlike a home, my policy will grow guaranteed. The house is not guaranteed to always go up in value. So this I can say for sure, it's impossible to be underwater or short on your policy. You can certainly be underwater on a mortgage. You can certainly be underwater on a mortgage. We saw that in 2008. But you will not be underwater with a life insurance policy because the policy grows every year on a guaranteed basis.
Okay. That was super helpful. So a practical example then, going back to your example of the short-term rental, because I think a lot of listeners are in this camp where they want to buy a high cash flowing rental property. If you've got $50,000 of cash sitting there and you were just to go out and buy a short-term rental, or if you had $50,000 that you put into this policy and then borrowed it back out to yourself, what tactically, what are the difference? What's the difference in the deal?
So in a practical example, if you have a $50,000 cash sitting in your policy and you went out to buy a short-term rental, is that what you're asking? Versus
exactly.
A savings account?
Versus, you just have cash sitting there. It's not in a policy. You don't have a policy. You just have cash. You're going to go out and put a down payment down on a property.
So let's say that I had never heard of Bank on Yourself and I had saved up money in my savings account and I could go get a short-term rental. I could withdraw that money to go put the down payment down or whatever for that short-term rental. Great. I've got the short-term rental. I've got all the advantages that Kirby talks about on this podcast. Let's say Kirby, on the other hand, you've set up a Bank on Yourself designed policy correctly structured. Now, I'll quickly mention a lot of people have heard of this strategy and then go talk to their nearby insurance guy or their financial buddy and get a poorly designed policy, incorrectly designed, and they think they have what we're talking about when they actually don't. So we can talk about that for a minute with our time left. But let's say Kirby has it correctly designed. You borrow against your life insurance. You go buy the real estate. You're still the owner of the real estate. The seller of your real estate has no clue how you bought the property. He doesn't know that it came from your policy. He just sees you signing the check for $50,000. So meanwhile, you have this asset in your policy earning interest, dividends, and growing for you. And it can be then repaid if you wish with renter income or any other, if you flip the property someday or whatever else, you can use it to pay off the loan. So the difference would be Mark sitting over here paid cash. I only have one asset to my name, the property. Kirby, on the other hand, has two assets to his name, the policy and the property.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. Yeah. So if you can go ahead and explain then what I guess you mentioned some. Well, earlier you were talking about the potential downfalls of. You mentioned like self-directed IRA policies, which is a big thing that a lot of real estate investors use. I guess how do you compare something like that to this strategy? Because I think that's where a lot of people default when they think about retirement, using assets to buy real estate.
Yeah, there's certainly a whole, another show we could do on this topic. So don't let me go too far afield with our time here. But we have all these options, and I'm a big believer in self-directed life. Believe me, I think there's a great satisfaction that comes from being able to direct where things are going, especially when it comes to our money or our investments. And a lot of folks know that you can put your IRA money with anything. You can get gold, crypto, real estate, whatever, and put that inside your IRA. And we call those sometimes self-directed IRAs. Here's where I have a problem with real estate. And I know I might be touching some hot wires here, with this audience. So I'll be very candid here. I understand sometimes that's just where your money is and you have to use your IRA for real estate. And that probably beats your mutual funds you probably could get at the local shop down the street, the financial shop. However, when you put real estate into an IRA, you're losing every tax advantage that comes with real estate. Everyone. All you get is a tax deferral. At that point, you lose depreciation. You lose the mortgage interest deduction. Interest on mortgage interest cannot be deducted. It's really hard to get loans against this. You cannot loan against an IRA. Typically, banks are going to have a harder time approving loans within your IRA for mortgages. So you're going to end up with higher rates typically. And then there's the problem of getting the money out of the IRA. Think about this. When you are 72 years old, current rules say that you're going to be forced to take money out of that IRA, whether you need it or not, called a required minimum distribution. Now, this means you've built up this nice portfolio of real estate, let's say, and now you're forced to sell that real estate on a certain schedule that may or may not align with your interest or the market. Like, what if you have to sell a property to satisfy the IRS's required minimum distributions when the market is tanking? How would that feel? So what if I could still do all of my own personal investment decisions, buying and selling my real estate as I wish, but totally outside of the government's, overwatch, and put it into a policy portfolio instead? Keep that money in an LLC, or keep the properties in an LLC, use my policy as a means by which to acquire and then manage those properties. And then here's the extra credit I briefly alluded to early in the episode. Every whole life policy can itself transform. It can transform like a, butterfly to, caterpillar to butterfly. It can go from a whole life policy that, let's say you used your whole life policy for 40 years. You bought and sold 10 different real estate properties. You used it to repair your properties. You sent your kid to college with the money. But now it's time to retire and you've got $1 million in your cash value life insurance. With a bit of paperwork, basically a week of back and forth with the insurance company, you can transform that whole life policy into an annuity. And the annuity then can provide for you a guaranteed lifetime income as long as you live, supplementing what you might get from all your real estate. So it just becomes another quote unquote rental, but without all the trash, termites, taxes, tenants, and toilets.